Hey there, thanks for joining me. I just wanted to make sure that my sound was on. Today I wanted to just share some tips that have come up for me in talking with some other composers about essentially ways to make working in Dorico faster, just a bit more intuitive. Hopefully these are helpful or maybe, also new. And one of them, actually, the first one I'm going to talk about is something that actually came up from somebody that I was on a call with. And I really wasn't aware of it. I'm not sure when it came into effect, but it's very handy. And since the discovery, I actually have been using it to quite great effect. So I think it's called stop note input or something like that. I'm going to show you how to use it. But I'm also going to talk about note tools. Note tools are an incredible feature if you're not using them. If you are using them, then you know how amazing they are. It allows you to very, very rapidly create complementary lines based on whatever notation you have written. I'm also going to talk about explode. I'm not going to talk about reduce, but they're sort of inversions of each other. So explode is where you can take a harmonic structure and you can send it over multiple staves. A reduce does exactly the thing that it sounds like it does, the opposite. Let me jump in and show you kind of what I got here. And the first thing to do really is just play through this simple melody. Very simple melody, and talk a little bit about things that I might commonly do. Now, the first thing I wanted to talk about was this stop input bar. So if you go into note input mode, right, and you put in some notes like so, they just continue on to the right forever, so on and so forth. And then if you go in back here, let's say, and you go back into note input mode and you hit I for insert, you get a different thing there. You can use this button over here to get in and out of insert mode as well. And when you're in insert mode, then what it does, it's like a word processor, right? So if I type in a D there, it shifts all the notes to the right like that. But sometimes what will happen is you'll actually have a piece of music, like I'll decide I've got this kind of cadential bar here, and I don't want to mess with that, but maybe I want to explore different pitches or rhythms in this bar. So what I can do is I can select that and hit Shift. On Mac, it's Shift Option I. I guess it'd be Shift Alt I on Windows, and it creates this little bar that you can actually move around if you want to different bars. And basically what it does is it puts a sort of barrier on the insert. So now if I go into note input mode with insert on and I put in note in, it does shift everything over, but when it gets this bar, it just basically deletes. It's like anything that goes to this bar gets pushed over a cliff, and you never see it again. But everything after this bar gets preserved. Now, if I go ahead and I put in a note that's where the note duration extends beyond that bar, then it doesn't work. But if I come back here and I'm in insert mode and I put in notes, you can see that it did not shift anything beyond this bar. So it kind of keeps, basically maintains your previous notation until that bar, at which time it starts to just let that stuff go. And I really like it. You can just make sure you select the measure that it exists on. Shift Option I or Shift Alt I will make it go away again. Okay, so that's something that I recently discovered, which I just think is really, really handy now that I know about it. Now, the next thing is note tools. The way you get to here is Shift I, and you get this pop over here with these little tools. And my favorite things with note tools, although this is incredibly powerful, is that you can go ahead and add intervals. So let's say that I wanted to take these notes here and I wanted to add a sixth above them. I hit Shift I and then just 6. And there you go, I get a sixth above them. Let's say that I wanted to select these and Shift I and I don't know, a ninth. right? Then you get a ninth above both of them. If you wanted to just get the sixth and the ninth, then you want to make sure you've just selected those notes, Shift I, 6, 9, like that, and that's exactly what you get. And now you can go ahead and you can select these notes here. This is actually the third feature that I really like, which is explode. So let's say I take these and I copy them, and then I have a series of trombones here, for example, and I right click after I copied those harmonized notes. I come to paste special and explode, and then I get that this notation that I copied gets exploded. Now this is way out of a trombone's range, right? So I need to make some accommodations like that in the case of trombones, but it preserves the notation, whatever that harmonic structure is. Now, if I wanted to go ahead here and make this into a major chord, then I could hit Shift I for note tools, just type in major third and perfect 5, right? And I get, of course, a B flat major chord. If I were to go ahead and this is kind of not one of my tips, but helpful anyway. If you only have one note in a vertical structure selected, you can hit Tab and it selects them all. So hit copy, which I'm hitting Command C. It would be Control C on Windows. And then again, selecting all three of these staves, however many staves your copied selection would support. Right click, paste special, and explode. And then I get that B flat major chord distributed across my trombones, which is super, super helpful. Now, what I really, where this really becomes incredibly powerful for me personally is where I certainly have memorized some of these in the way of shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts. But having them on a Stream Deck or connecting them with maybe a MIDI controller where a MIDI value triggers them in Dorico can be really even faster, where it's just a push button thing, you know, like basically copy and then explode being like 2 commands that you put onto Stream Deck buttons or something like that. Really, really powerful stuff when you start using these tools. You can even go ahead and you can do that with like a good way to turn a common note tools, let's say algorithm, into a sort of push button solution is I could select these, let's say, and if I go to Shift I and I type in 3, 5, then I get chords, right? Let's say that I wanted to turn that into kind of a push button thing like major chords. Well, then what I could do is, I'll undo that. I could come up here to script and I could say start recording macro, right? And then come down here and I hit Shift I and then major third. I'd probably want to be super specific what kinds of third and fifth I want, right? Then after I do that, I come back up here to script and recording. And now under script, I'm going to have, oh, sorry, it comes up with this dialog window. I can call this major chord, right? Harmonize major chord or major triad, something like that. Now, when I am on a note, and I go ahead, I'm sorry, I'm having to see under my lamp here, and I select that from my script menu, you can see that it basically opens the pop-up for me and then built that out. So now I could go ahead and just have this macro immediately available. And you can even, depending on how your operating system works, you can even go in and assign keyboard shortcuts to that. I know how to do that in Mac. I don't know exactly how to do that in Windows off the top of my head. I don't want to get too far off the topic, but the that stop insert bar, that's the first really helpful tip I've been getting a lot of use out of. Note the note tools, if you're not using them, dive into them. There's fantastic documentation on Dorico's sort of help pages on Steinberg's site about the different things you can do. You can do incredibly complex things, transformations, all sorts of stuff. It's a great way to create counterlines, counter melodies. I have so many ways that I have found to use note tools. They're a bit complex, they're a bit esoteric and sort of Unixy to use, but they're extremely powerful. So I definitely suggest looking into them. And then Explode, and you'll notice in that same Paste Special submenu, there's also Reduce, and Reduce can do the exact opposite thing of Explode. So I hope that that's come in handy for everybody watching this. Yeah, I actually I was dealing with Shubhas. You're pointing out that you'd hit that by accident, that Shift Option I for the stop insert bar, and that was actually how somebody who I was on a Zoom call with brought it up and was like, "How do I get rid of this?" And that's exactly what happened. And then once I realized what it was for, I thought, "Gosh, that's really, really, really useful." So thanks so much for watching my video. Thanks, Shubhas, for being here with me today. If you're watching this video after the fact, please do like and subscribe. It really helps me surface these videos to a larger audience. And I will be back again next week, next Tuesday. Thanks again, and have a great weekend. All right, bye for now.